The longest streak I'm aware of is 37 maps in a row on Nuke from Astralis, and Navi are 30% of the way there with their insane, and it is kind of crazy, 12-0 Mirage run. And Mirage really isn't a map you necessarily think of as very tactical, but you have, I mean, Vitality have a 8-map win streak on it or something. Navi have a very strong win streak on it. You have a lot of teams that are very strong on Mirage and with consistency as well. And I think Navi shows why that's possible, because it's not like they're just swinging out and out-aiming their opponents on any sort of consistent basis. They're doing a really good job of catching their opponents in rotation, forcing them into uncomfortable spots, and then catching them off guard. And part of the way they do that is by setting up for a fairly aggressive double lurk quite often with JL in Palace or Bit in Palace. They switch this back and forth depending on the strat. And you have one player ramp, one player Palace is basically it. They put a decent amount of pressure in mid, and one of the main things I want to highlight is that during this game, they really change up the timing. So if you look here, 50 seconds, they smoke off top con, they molly it, and both their players die there. So not exactly what you want coming out of your mid play, and because of the timing on that, and the timing that needed to be on that, you end up with the rotation into A at perfect timing, right? Like, they kill the 2 players mid, well then the A hit's about to come out, you have 3 players on A, and it's round completely over. And for a lot of this game, it really looked like Navi was going to have their win streak broken. They really looked like they were getting kind of, honestly, outclassed at times. Although, to be fair, I mean, in this game, Alexi B already has half of the kills he's going to have by something like round 20, where he gets to 4. So, you know, sometimes you're just going to have an off game with 1 or 2 of your players, and as evidenced by the previous round, you know, you can have a good idea trying to take con. You can either run that into 2 players con, as they did, but you can also run that into 1 player who just kills both of your players if you just miss, right? I mean, I'll say this a million times again, but you can have the best strat ever, but at the end of the day, CS is about shooting the other person in the head. In fact, the all strats really are is make your opponent's shot harder. But you can't really make your opponent's shot impossible, right? Even if they're blind. So it is what it is, right? Now, on these ecos, they do actually force out, I mean, if you look at it, they didn't full invest into this, and by 30 seconds left, you've got 0 utility on the entirety of Mouse, which is at the very least of what you're hoping to do on this sort of round, right? You want to get damage, you want to win the round if possible, right? But if you can at least get a kill or 2 and you can make them waste all their utility, because that's whatever $1,500 or something they have to spend back to buy it back again, at the very least you've got that going for you. Now, one of the things Navi do that you might see in Pugs is like this early flash over A, and usually players in Pugs only throw that when someone runs out, and so it's a dead giveaway, right? But in this case, Navi throw this when they're not necessarily running out, so that they can also throw it when they run out. So they're masking their play here, which helps them a lot. Then they've spent, I believe this is all 5 of their smokes. I believe this smoke bottom con is a T smoke as well. So they've literally used all 5 of their smokes. Yes, they have no smokes left by 1:30 in the round. And this is what I mean, changing the pace, changing the looks. And one thing you'll note is that JL threw both smokes from outside A ramp. This is also the way they hit A. If you watch the FaZe Liquid game, you might notice if you listen to the comms, they mention in the comms that, it's 1 person throwing utility, because when Liquid exec A, they have 2 to 3 players throwing utility, whereas when Navi exec A, it looks quite a bit different. They have the same player throw both smokes. But anyways, they have the timing here where they molly out con and they try and come through right around the time their smoke goes down. A lot of the time you'll catch the CT throwing a re-smoke in that case, and I think that's probably the point behind that. You try and find that timing where they might not be completely ready before their smoke blooms unless they throw it early, which most teams at this point will. They got the kill on the player con, which actually did immediately pull Yimpat over to the B site, or towards A rather, but he gets pulled back because nothing else really happens. And then JL does actually trade out. So you have a 3v3. There is a good amount of time as well, and JL can retrieve the bomb. So everything is actually an option at this point. And they've really they've split up the defense of Mao's quite heavily. The problem is that Torji was in the right spot at the right time to turn it into a 3v2. So now you have a bit of an awkward spot from Jail and Wonderful, but Jail did have time to rotate back around, and I think they got the information on the way the setup was being played that, you know, well, you've got Torji towards Ticket. It doesn't look like anyone was most likely pushed up in Palace or Ramp, which means a rotate back around is actually safe. And the CTs here, I mean, you want to control as much as you can, but at the same time, it's tough to control every angle without leaving some openings where you could easily get killed, right? So you kind of have to take some risks, or just have the, I mean, you take some risks either way. You either take the risk that you could die, or you take the risk that they move through an opening like out a ramp where you're not quite ready for it. The retake's going to come in through Connector, and Wonderful's in place, but simply can't land the shot. And then JL is in perfect position, and we've seen Zaiwu clutch here many times before, and we'll see JL clutch here as well. And Torji has a kit, but he knows he's getting knifed if he stays on it, I think is the problem. So he pops off. JL wins it with 1 health, the 1v3. And I mean, that's around... Navi had a pretty good idea into the opening of the round, right, to turn it into, I believe they just opened up the 5v4 right away, and Connector control, but I mean, they did use 5 smokes to do so. So, you know, although they opened up with an entry, and this was talked about a lot with, like, G2 versus Maus, where G2 won something like 14-10 in opening duels, something like that. I'm not saying this is necessarily the case as much in the G2 series, but you can get an entry, and an entry isn't always perfectly equal. You know what I mean? If they use 5 smokes and get 1 entry, it's still tough to do all that much afterwards, right? Unless you're like already set up, like looking into an A split, but they really weren't looking for that. Then you kind of just have, like, what, you walk out B, you make contact, you trade. It's tough. It's tough to deal with an Opera especially, but in any case, Navi this time around take top con about 104. So the thing about these timings are, it's really hard to actually get a good read on what Navi are doing, where they're going, where they want to end the round, and where they have a lot of their players, because they change up the timing so much. A lot of teams, you can kind of see that their opponents are getting a bit of a read, where it's like, okay, well, at like 120, usually they try and make an A hit happen, so they can time their utility back at them. Whereas against Navi, I mean, I think Monacy even mentioned this directly at there was like an Opera roundtable for ESL. Monacy mentioned this, that G2, or Navi rather, is one of the hardest teams to play against, because you really don't know where they are or what they're doing at almost any time, right? You don't actually know what their plans are, and so it's hard to find those gaps, and Navi really don't leave very many gaps. But they've left enough of a gap that they're down 5-1 pretty quickly. And they're not only down 5-1, but they're on to Pistols. Brawlin getting pretty aggressive against Pistols, but you know, sometimes you can take a bit of a risk even without head armor. But I think we're just going to zoom through this one, because I don't think too much happens. I mean, Navi want to waste a bit of time to draw out utility, and you can see that Maus aren't necessarily giving that back. Like, they hold on to that smoke for bottom con until 40 seconds there. Now, there's always the debate, like, if you do something on an anti-eco, does that really signal what you're going to be doing on a full buy? And I think the answer is generally supposed to be no, but I know listening to the FaZe Liquid comms, I believe they even mentioned, like, oh, we've been doing this a lot on anti-ecos and kind of playing against it. If you do something a lot on anti-ecos, or if you just do something on anti-ecos, a lot of the time it does blend into what you're actually thinking on gun rounds, in my mind, but I think it's not necessarily supposed to. Anyways, Alexi B with the swing out through mid. Torji didn't have the best spawn, so I think I'm not sure if Wonderful's flash is supposed to blind that. I think the point is to blind that exact angle if he was there earlier, but I think he just didn't have the best spawn. But I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, when I'm talking about a double lurk, especially when rounds start to go wrong in towards middle, this is when you're looking at the double lurk. The idea is there's only one A player. There's 2 entrances to A. It's almost impossible for him not to be vulnerable to at least one of them at any given time if you time it correctly. But if you have the rotation close enough, and you had Xerxin in jungle here, then he can pivot over. So a lot of the time that does require a bit of pressure from the mid player. And unfortunately, if Alexi B is dead in mid, you have no pressure from the mid player, and it's going to be a lot easier for the CTs to be looking in the right direction at the right time. Now, 5v3, I'm not sure I'm massively in love with the next play from Mouse. Now, keep in mind, it looks like they have utility, and they sort of do, but they actually sort of don't also, because Xerxin has, by the way, look at the time here, right? Xerxin has, as in there's lots of it, Xerxin has smoke flash, Torji has smoke nade flash, but they're kind of in positions where it's tough to use, right? Like if Shuhei had a flash right now, he could maybe throw it over mid and time it with the peek from Torji. If Brawlin had a flash, he could consider the same thing, although you're taking a bigger risk if you're on the A site, flashing over. I hear sometimes, like if you're lurking Palace, you hear a guy throw a flash from triple, and then you just peek out and you can kill him when they're fighting in mid, for example. But the part of the problem is you have the players with utility are in positions where they can't really throw it. And I think the idea is to just like re-aggress in mid, right? You just saw the lurk out A, then there's no noise A. So a lot of the time you're going to see Navi, they're probably going to be looking to set back up into a different setup, like wrap back around, go through it 3 out A or something like that. Or you can catch them where like someone's kind of like walking, looking cat or something like that. And it's timed specifically with this smoke coming down, right? So when the smoke is coming down, that's when if you're Navi, you're really looking to peek, you're really looking to start taking con if you're thinking about that type of thing. So they've got 2 con, they go for the nade. I'm not sure I'm super in love with this just because the timing isn't perfect. If you could have somehow have a flash over or something, I feel like that would be a lot more effective, but I don't know. Maybe it is the high percentage play and it just went terribly wrong. It doesn't quite feel like it to me. I feel like maybe he even could have just naded it and flashed it and then let that be used as like a prompt for Navi maybe to try and aggress connector, and then he could back up off of that or something. I don't know. I mean, even Xerxin had a re-smoke for bottom con, but the problem is even in a 5v3, Mirage is a lot more... It feels a lot better on Mirage. I know Simple, for example, has complained a lot about this on Inferno, where you're in a 2v4, you just double walk out B. Oh my god, were they on each other's? You just double walk out B, and you can turn it into a 2v2 really quickly. Mirage, I mean, any map you can kind of find angles where you can do that, but Jimfat, by the way, especially in the previous game in the quarterfinals, was an incredible performer. And I mean, Jimfat's coming out as... Is he a top 20 player this year? He's got to be... Is he the best anchor? I don't know. It's unfortunate he misses this one. Jail on 2 HP. 2 HP. If this nade hits him for 2 damage extra, or even if I think if he hits him in the stomach, doesn't that do more like 25 instead of 27? Because where does he hit him here? Maybe he hits him in the shoulder, maybe with the recoil. 2 HP. Navi come out of this game with like 3, someone said 3 or 4 under 10 HP clutches, which is unbelievable, because if you look at the buy rounds, Navi come out on top like something like 6-5, I think, in buy versus buy rounds, which is, what you're looking for if you're Navi, I suppose. But if that includes a bunch of clutches and something like a 3v5 victory, I'm not sure you're feeling too ecstatic about that, about that outcome. Actually, I think that flash, by the way, is supposed to catch the opper here, not the opper if they go for the other angle. So someone's already commented an angry comment when I was thinking about that. But again, you have a slight change up in timing. This time you have Wonderful out mid. This time you have Bit lurking Palace, and you don't really have, like, this is kind of a jangled buy here from Navi, right? They've got Bit with the Tech 9, Alexi with the Mac 10. There's not that many ways they can necessarily play out this round, I don't think, unless you want to just like hope that your Tech 9 and Mac 10 can do well at range. But you'll notice, I think they're trying not to have these spotted. Like, I don't think Alexi B is sitting top mid hiding unintentionally, because obviously if you have a Tech 9, you have a Mac 10, it does somewhat signal what you're doing. Now, the Tech 9 in Palace, you can do lots of things because, well, the Tech 9 in Palace, I don't think necessarily says what you're doing. It's just odd to have a Tech 9 in Palace if you're not going for an A hit, but, you could just be lurking Palace and you just have a Tech 9. I don't know. But the Mac 10 in mid does feel like, you know, it does give something away. But I don't know, maybe it wasn't even considered. In any case, you have the hit up towards A. You have Xerxin pick up both kills. I actually thought Brawlin picked up one, but Xerxin picked up both kills. And you do have a reasonable situation for Navi. They're trying to figure out where Brawlin is, I believe. Or did Brawlin already die? No, Brawlin's already dead. So they are just still clearing out sight. They are still just clearing out sight, trying to make sure nothing weird's happening. But they do have to retrieve the bomb. They know that there's at least one player in jungle. And although they'll get the kill onto Xerxin, Jim Fat is still there, and then you have Wonderful on 3 HP. Not an ideal scenario, and if he peeks into you, general rule, right? If they peek into you and you're low health, you're just gonna die pretty much every time, right? But that leaves Mao's 7-2 in the lead, and yet again, Navi are onto some pistols. So, I mean, watching this live, this really does feel like a game where Navi are just gonna get blown out. After winning 11 games in a row. And if you look at the way Navi win these games on Mirage, they're taking teams where it's like this map 1, 13-11. For map 2, 13-1 for Navi. Map 3, 16-14. Like, it's like teams that are not like just underperforming. Teams that are not just having a bad day, and they're just turning them, they're just destroying them, right? And they're finding so many openings to not only get entries, but when they make contact, to bring rounds back in their favor, even if they lose the duel, right? But when I mentioned earlier that the flashes they throw over A early, one of the benefits is that it allows a flash to be thrown when you go for this type of A swing. Like, if you don't throw those flashes early on rounds where you don't swing, then that flash, they're never going to peek into you, right? They're just going to back up, or they're just going to let you die to an Opper if there's an Opper there, or they're going to, maybe they'll double peek you. Well, okay, it's not that they won't peek into you. They'll probably double peek you if they're going to peek, but they're going to play pretty safe, right? They're not going to give you free engagements, 1v1s or anything. But if you throw that flash a decent amount of the time, and then only once in a while you peek out off of it, obviously your opponents are prone to get a little bit more lazy, right? They're trying to take every advantage they can get, and one of those advantages might be that exact type of thing. And the same thing goes for the type of conditioning you can do, where some teams, when they smoke mid from T-spawn, when they smoke window, a lot of the time you smoke window from T-spawn because, well, then that guy that smoked it can go A or B, and you're looking to set up into a hit, right? So you have this peek out window, there's nothing in middle, and the smoke was from T-spawn. Well, I can just jump out window and, you know, either walk underpass or just get full control of mid and figure out what exactly is going on. Maybe they're going to walk back out mid and I can get the kill. Well, unfortunately for Shuhei, Ime is underpass and just destroys him, and then you have what is a 2v5 where they're both just going to end up saving. I mean, there's nothing you can really do here. Best you can do really is live and hold on to your guns. And Xerxin will get away, but it's already 8-3. So, I mean, Navi won. I mean, to keep in mind, though, that, like, if you look at this half, in terms of full buys versus full buys, there's not really been a lot of them. I think it's even in full buys versus full buys. And that's why full buys versus full buys don't mean everything, you know? When I have, like, this spreadsheet of, like, how many kills does a player get on buy versus buy rounds, obviously buy versus buy rounds are, if you win more of them, most of the time, if you win more buy versus buy rounds than the enemy, you win the game. But it doesn't mean everything, right? There are other rounds in the game, you know? But it does mean, like, and that's why pistols are such a big deal. It's not just about the 2 rounds after. A lot of the time it's about the economy it builds up to give you the leeway to lose a buy round, you know? Not always. You have to convert those second and third round anti-ecos or whatever effectively in order to have money. If you win it with one player, you're not going to have money for a rebuy. But I don't know where I was going with that. Alexi B gets ahead of the resmoke in bottom con, so he gets into a nice position. Maos are known to kind of walk into that angle there to the right, and lots of teams are, especially when there's a smoke off con, you know, because Navi could be hitting their way up cat here. Sometimes you want to get that information back into mid. Alexi B's in a great spot. And if you look at what's the situation for Maus, utility-wise, they actually only have 2 smokes and a nade. So it's not the best utility situation ever. They're, if they want to get some information back, they're going to end up having to dry clear or just immediately kill Alexi B as he peeks out. And then the Xertian was also boosted up on Cat Bricks, so he gets a second kill. But the prompt rotate from JL, he's in a decent position. He won't actually get the kill there immediately, but he does spot out 2 players, and it does draw, yet again, another pivot from a different CT. And it looked like Xertian was going to pop off, jump into connector, but it looks like once they realize, okay, it was only JL spotted, he stays on cap, but still, Bit's not expected in underpass. And I've seen people debating this, like, how good of a lurker is Bit? Is he one of the best lurkers in the world, at least on Mirage? Because the debate I've seen being had is like, how much is Bit and how much is his team? And I think you could say there's definitely it's definitely a bit of both, right? Like, you have to be honest, it's a bit of both. I give a lot of credit to the team because, Bit is not underpass every round, right? Like, a lot of the way that you set yourself up in these situations sets up the opponents to expect certain things. If you generally don't have an underpass player, except in certain situations, you can really queue up your opponents to expect something and then catch them with something completely different. And with how much most teams are, by the way, seeing Jimfat there was crazy. Jimfat still almost caught him off guard. I can't believe Jimfat doesn't kill him here. Oh, it's not like Jimfat misses. It's just wonderful, just quick counter strafe. Wonderful wasn't even, I don't think, pre-aiming that exact spot. Insta kill. But I mean, with how much teams are counter-strating now, they kind of know what your tendencies are from your past games. And so you see, like, the IGLs and the coaches talk about this. Sometimes they're talking about, oh, well, we have to look at our own demos. What have we done in recent games that they're going to counter-strat? You're anti-stratting yourself. And I think that's certainly something that Navi are adept at, as well or better than any other team, But in this round, aggressive up mid, Ime in window, and then you have Bit on balcony with dualies, and that footstep probably doesn't help, but actually it does absolutely help, and he gets 3 kills anyways. Key, guys, key. Shoot the dualies fast, okay? I see people, they want to be cool. This is my pet peeve, okay? They want to be cool, they shoot the dualies slow. Look, okay? The dualies are the only pistol, I don't know if this is true. The dualies are the only pistol. I don't know if this is true, but let me say it confidently anyways. The dualies are the only pistol, maybe the CZ, that have a recoil pattern. Like, the USP, you spray it, it just gets bigger. The area in which the bullets can land just gets wider, right? It's not like you can counter the recoil of the USP, right? But the dualies, you shoot that shit, you spam it, and you pull down, and you shoot at the stomach while you're spraying, and you're hitting them in the head. And you can be like jiggling 80, spraying at them with like 35,000 bullets or however many are in the dualies, and they can't hit you because they suck, because you're playing like 2K elo because you're a noob or whatever. Well, I'm not leaking my own elo or something. I think my last facing game wasn't like February. But they can't shoot you, and you can shoot them easily, right? But defuse on first round seems to almost always signal now a force. And guess what else? Not defusing on first round, where you just win by elimination, also almost always signals a force. Teams are just forcing on second round very consistently. And it is kind of clutch here. There was a debate in Maui Snake's chat. Okay, I go in there once in a while to hear some hot takes. And nothing else, by the way. Hot takes about CS and fashion and nothing else. And what does it mean to be clutch? When you talk about a player in CS being clutch, are you talking about, like, at the end of the game, like, did they win a bunch of clutches? I feel like being clutch is like coming up in big moments, okay? I don't know what Maui Snake's actual opinion on this was. I just know there was a debate in Maui Snake's chat, and someone was saying that clutch doesn't mean that. It means winning clutches. I'm like, no. What are you talking about? But I mean, yes, but also no. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Yes, but also no. It does mean winning clutches, but like when I think of someone being clutch, I'm thinking like, you know, grand finals, they show up, yeah? Major finals, they're going to be your top fragger throughout the series, not just in, you know, a 1v1. They're not bottom fragging and winning a 1v2. Alexi B. 8-7 for Mouse. But I mean, you traded pistol rounds here, so I don't think either team can be that salty about it. That's the reality of the situation. I mean, it's a bit different depending on how much you force on second round, but obviously Mouse had a pretty good chance to actually win the second round. In fact, they swung 2 players onto Wonderful in jungle. Wonderful was alone with 10 HP, and they both died. And whose fault is that, really? I mean, Wonderful hit a couple nice shots, but whose fault is that, really? Mouse, they set up Xerxin in window. This is just a really solid angle to, I mean, you can lock off this ladder play. You can rotate to flank market if you want, but you can also hear the rotations of the CTs really easily, right? You can hear if they're rotating window to market. You can hear if they're just rotating to market normally. You have all these different options, and you're given all of this different information. And Bit, I mean, let's be honest here, okay, dude? Like, let's just be honest here. Shuhei was barely ready for this, okay? He was just strafing straight into the angle, and he just owned you, okay? That's just the reality. Sometimes it's going to happen, okay? Sometimes it's going to happen. But that opens up a lot of options for Mouse as their 5v3 here. I mean, they have all the options in the world, but you don't really want to do too much rotating around necessarily if you're in a 5v3 because you leave openings, you leave opportunities for players to get killed. Like, for example, if they rotated back T-spawn A because Xerxin's, like, pushed up connector, for example, or even if he was in window, if he just dies, then you're kind of like committed to that. So they haven't really given away too much of what they're doing. They just continue walking out. As long as you can find the player on B and trade on him, then you're in a good position, which is exactly what they'll do. And then 2v4, Navi really should just be looking to save, but Xerxin is in a very effective position to catch them off guard and take down the op. And at this point, you know, we can zoom through this. We know how this one goes. Jail picks up the op, CTs go for a timeout, and then they win the round right after, right? That's what they do every time. I actually have no idea how often Navi win right after a pause. I think they lost right after a pause on T side. In either case, Alexi be doing the jump spot. I see most players doing the jump spot on the left side nowadays, and there's a lot of different ways that that B players will be looking to play. But if we look at the scoreboard, Alexi B is 2-12. And this can get into its own mind game, okay? Because I actually looked at it statistically. I was thinking to myself, I bet you teams hit B a lot more against FaZe than they do against a lot of other teams because Kerrigan is their B player. They play off of B a decent amount of the time, and Kerrigan has been struggling recently, right? So I looked up how often does FaZe, do teams hit B against FaZe. It's actually not any more than other teams. That's a shot from Xerxin. That's a shot from Xerxin. That's not on Alexi B. So you get kind of into a mind game if you're like, oh, well, their players having a really tough game. Should we go B? And the other team's like, well, our players having a really tough game. Should we stack B? I think, you know, there are some considerations of this sometimes. But Alexi B, I think he wants to get the M4, but he doesn't want to be stuck here necessarily with an MP9, although actually maybe this isn't the worst angle ever. Oh my god, Alexi B. That's round 17, he doubles his kills, and that actually gives them a chance. I mean, it's 3v3 retake now. The problem is that although we got 2 kills, they got full sight control before he ever spotted anyone, and they kind of knew it. So they're just in really good positions. And I mean, B Mirage rotating back in with an op, not exactly the most comfortable situation to be in. You're just, unless your opponents just give you a kill, it's hard to get much done in that type of situation, you know? Okay. JL just, you know, yep. I was actually just questioning because I thought there was a scoreline where the T's were down like 8-11 or something. But they're up 10-7. Okay, well, Jail gets the quick entry. Oh my god. Bit. What was that? Bit. Oh my god. Dude, there's no way this guy with a USP, no armor just did this. Swing out. Oh my god. Pick up the AK. Bro. There's no way this is real. And then Shui's like, oh my, dude, look at the aura this guy has. I don't want to peek into that. I'm screwed. So he's looking to clear him out, but gets 2 USPs, get 3 kills between them. Really? Really? Jail's entry in mid, I think, does make a surprising amount of difference just in the ability for the T's to trade on the other side to put pressure on this play. But what do you guys think of this AK, by the way? I really love Reason Gaming stickers. I almost bought I almost bought 4 of them, 4 Reason Gaming holos, and put them on my AK when they were $400 each. Okay, but the problem is I did not have that type of money. That was going to be like, you know, like people, they kind of like, they don't have that much money, but there's this one thing they really want, so they save up for like their favorite car. I saved up for it, and you know what I did instead? I bought a shitty knife. Okay, and then I gambled it away. Don't do that. Don't do that. Well, I gambled it away several years later. Okay, that's a different situation. Is that really the best? Oh, that's cool. Okay. I was like, that can't be the best way to nade window smoke. No, he's nading the smoke to spot underpass. Okay. They must have a read on this. No. There must be a reasoning behind this. He nades himself for 16 damage to jump spot underpass. Okay. Spots mid, nothing here, doesn't see it, mollies, holds. Did he just fuck that up and he's just like making the best of it? Maybe? And then he's just like nades himself for 20 damage, doesn't see anything, rotates back over to A. I don't know. This isn't that crazy of a setup. Op, rotate back to ticket, it's pretty standard, you know? It's a pretty normal setup. Oh, this is, yeah, okay, sorry. So this is the buy that I saw someone on Reddit complaining about. Okay, so I'll note this buy for a second. So the logic they had was that off of this buy, if you look at the money, that no, it's next round. It's next round. It's the next round. It's not this round. It's the next round. Don't think about this logic. This logic doesn't matter because it's the next round where the logic matters. I think. I'm pretty sure it's the next round. Okay. So Wonderful's gonna rotate back over to A. Bit. Toss the re-smoke connector. And obviously, if you have your op rotate back over to a decent amount of the time, you can, look, don't try this at home. It's very risky. But if you only leave A ramp unsmoked when you have an opper there, well, then they know you have an opper there if you don't smoke it, right? So sometimes when you do have an opper there, you do, in fact, also need to not smoke it. But kill onto Wonderful. I mean, Torji gets hit for 80. Wonderful's supposed to be winning that, but I know that one can be tough sometimes. You just hit him you clip him through the box type of thing, especially depending on how they peak the angle. Sometimes it feels like people know how to peak that angle where it makes it really uncomfortable to shoot back as an opper. You kind of see their head over the top. It gets kind of uncomfortable, but I mean, the reality is I think he's generally supposed to be winning that. I think that's fair to say. Some people think that you can't criticize pros, but I think the problem is I don't think pros don't know what I'm saying. But I think a lot of the things that I'm saying, pros would be like, yes, I agree. When you're in the moment, man, do you guys ever make mistakes in the moment where you're like, fuck, that was dumb, okay? That's generally when someone says like a pro made a mistake, they don't think that the pro doesn't know better. Although sometimes, but they don't think that the pro doesn't know that. Usually the reality is that the pro does know that, and if they listen, they would be like, yes. Or they would be like, fuck you, don't talk about it because you're making me look bad. But deep down, they'd be like, yes. Never heard Vu say anything wrong in his life, even when he says he's not sure about something. Okay. Not a lot of utility for Navi, so they kind of just have to be willing to take some engagements. Having Wonderful with the op is a great call in this situation. The question is, what is Mouse expecting in terms of a buy? I think that is like a pretty important question to be asking, because what they're expecting in terms of a buy should pretty much signal what they're going to go for as a play. And it's hard to really tell what the buy that is being expected here is, but Maus are just going to walk straight back into the connector angle. And maybe there's a reason for that, but it does feel not great. If you're expecting... Because JL saved the op from the previous round, didn't he? No, Shuhei's AK is in JL's hand. So Wonderful bought his own op. So they very well could be expecting that there's no way that Wonderful could have an op, because they know that the op was down window and JL was spotted just before the round ended at underpass, and he wouldn't have had time to get back to window before the round swapped over. So that might be the idea, that they're really not expecting an opper, or maybe they're just not expecting an opper in that position. Anyways. This is the buy that was being questioned on Reddit. I didn't mention this at the beginning of the video, but this is the question that was being this is the one that was being questioned. So if Maus buy here and they lose, it's 11-10. Then they eco 11-11. They get one more buy. It could be 12-11 either side, and then they're basically on a force for the final round. So they get one buy, one force, and or two forces and an eco. The comment on Reddit, if we look at the money, I think the comment is wrong, because if we look at the money, there's really not very much money. Well, the problem is this type of... Actually, does someone have armor already? This is less than I thought they had. Yeah, okay, the comment... So what I thought they had was, I thought they had 3 players with like 3K, and 2 players with... like one player with 1,500, one player with 1,700. And I think that one is where it becomes kind of debatable, because, you know, you're not going to have a great buy if you buy this round, but at the same time, it is true. Like, if you could afford, if you had these 2 players, if you had these 3 players that were 15, 15, 17, if they were on 21 instead, you'd most likely save. I mean, you get 1,900 next round, so you're at 4K. It's not the best buy ever, but you can get Galils, whatever, right? But because the buy, I mean, they're going to get 1,900. So you've got Torji on 34, you've got Yimfat on 34, you've got Brawlin on 36. Like, this is not like you can't really buy with this. And not only that, you can't even like carry those players having a bad buy with like an op, because Zershin is going to have 49. Is he going to drop an op and have no armor himself? That's crazy. Right, so you're kind of like in this, you just have to force here. Actually, it's really uncomfortable, but you have to force. I thought the guy, I thought there was a better point to be had. That's taking Reddit comments seriously, that's what you get. Maybe in the broadcast, like, it showed the wrong thing in Spawn, because I really thought there was only 2 players with like that low of money. Maybe I just misread it. Anyways, Maus have to go for a force here. They really have no other option. They're going to send Shuhei outside ramp, and he's going to do what Navi like to do, which is the double smoke. And look, it's obvious that this is thrown by one player, but if your A hits are also thrown with these 2 smokes, then it works. But if you look at the Liquid phase game, I really have to look more into that, because you can't fake an A hit with 2 smokes that are thrown by one player unless you also have an A hit that's thrown with 2 smokes by the same player. Otherwise, it's just painfully obvious. And maybe Liquid do have those types of plays. And I mean, I would assume Liquid do have those types of plays, but maybe just FaZe hadn't seen it, or maybe they were like... Something I've seen, I think teams... I saw the IGL roundtable. I know teams do sometimes think of this, like thinking of what players later in the tournament are going to be thinking about what you're playing. But anyways, back to the round at hand. Jumping out, Alexi B just instantly dies, which is not ideal. It's not ideal. He gets kind of caught in the timing here. He tosses the smoke down, but this isn't like a completely accidental timing. Like, you have to be ready for these types of timings. And he gets kind of saved that JL actually gets a kill here, because if JL gets no kill there, and I mean, he lights Brawlin up as well, this could go very differently. And then Wonderful has... I think this is Wonderful's molly that is just like a perfect, flawless, unbelievably good molly. Here's the rotates. Spot out. Toss the molly straight through. That molly is actually going to push gym fat into the open because the molly actually takes out like the plant spot and the van pillar, and I'm supposing that's completely intentional, right? Because he mollies that, and then they try and quickly push through market doorway before the T's can actually set anything up in terms of control. And I think this is like an unbelievably effective retake, if that's basically the point. You push them out of all the positions they want. The reason that coming out market doorway obviously is really tough is because you can get shot from here and here and here. But if you take out this, then you can get shot from here and here and here, I guess, which aren't nearly as effective. Or someone can jump up here, but then you have the opper on this ledge here peeking down. And as long as he doesn't miss, which, to be fair, Wonderful is known to miss a shot or two. As long as he doesn't miss, then you really catch them basically with their pants down, especially because the bomb wasn't planted yet, right? So they still have to send a player to plant the bomb. It just becomes so uncomfortable. And I guess did they know the bomb was down as well? I think the bomb died, but did it die to the molly? No, I'm not sure. Okay, run boosting, pet peeve, biggest pet peeve. Okay, if you're ever getting run boosted, okay, you stay here, you don't jump until you're ready to go. When you jump, you go immediately, okay? Because if we look at this from Xershin's screen, you can just look up and see the guy land on your head and time it, okay? It's that simple. The guy's on top of you, he's gonna jump, you look up, you see him jump, and then you don't need to do like, oh, well, at 1:14 on the clock, we swing out, or go on my third shot. Don't do any of this stupid fucking, this is so dumb, dude. Who came up with running out, doing the run boost on my third shot? Whoever came up with that needs to fucking end, no. Don't say that. They need to look at themselves and think about what they've done, okay? Because they've ruined a generation of CS players, okay? You jump and then you run. It's that fucking simple. And then someone else is like, oh, I'll jump on my second jump. Fucking why? Why is it better on your second jump where you need to tell me that? Why is it better on your second jump? Why not do it on your first jump when you jump the first time? Why do you need to be higher up for me to run boost you, for you to jump again? What the fuck do you need to jump again for, dude? Oh my, run boosting people triggers me, okay? Because they always fuck it up the first time. I have faith. I don't want to over-explain. I don't want to treat people like they're children. I don't want to tell them how to fucking run boost. But then he jumps and he goes, on my third, and then he just doesn't move. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And he goes, well, I was going to jump again. Bro, stop. Stop, please. Please run boost more effectively, people. Oh my god. Alright, anyways, I don't know what's going on in this round. You have the double underpass play, but on the other end of things, you have Wonderful, who's just really loved connector so far. Oh, and the timing, they just don't find the timing. Because this molly, one of the things that helps is stopping this type of play, but they're not in underpass yet by the end of that molly. So Xershin just gets completely owned by a guy standing right there. And there's really nothing Xershin, I think, can really do. I mean, maybe you can jiggle that, but I think you're expecting that you get that peek out before the molly. Now, this becomes a bit awkward because Shuhei is in this position, and Ime kind of knows it's possible, but sometimes these types... One of the things I got from the IGL roundtable was like, you'd be surprised how often players don't communicate that something could be possible. And this might be one where it might not have been communicated. Although, who the hell knows? Ime is supposed to be their secondary caller, right? He's supposed to communicate this stuff, right? There's the molly. And I think JL is just kind of, yeah, he's ready for that, but he's kind of like hoping that it's not. But Ime's in a great spot if JL does die. He should, in theory, be able to line up too. It can get a bit awkward though, because imagine for a second that the T's have nobody in apartments, right? And then Shuhei swings out and he's like, well, let me just check my flank because Cat smoked off. I'm just going to check back. Oh, would you look at that? Ime's right there. And then he kills him. And Ime would have the advantage, but sometimes, you just lose fights even when you have the advantage. I mean, it's just a reality of the situation. All right. So the kill onto LXCB. I'm not sure if Ime heard anything in terms of noise in spawn or if this is just kind of a gamble stack. It did kind of look like the setup was more in the direction of an A hit, but I'm sure they have extra information as to what that necessarily looks like for each team. And you do end up just kind of in a 2v3 kind of hope that you get the right timing situation. And Bit, he doesn't even really get the right timing. I mean, he had less time. Brawlin had more time to kill him before he got a kill onto Torji than Bit had to kill Torji, right? Like, oh, maybe not. Okay, maybe. I didn't think Brawlin whiffed. I just thought if he like one-tapped him, he would have got the kill quicker, but you can tell they're not really expecting the second player in connector because this is not necessarily a standard setup, right? But it doesn't need to be a standard setup. And I think the key here is that Brawlin doesn't have a lot of time, so he's kind of forced to cross over quickly. And then Alexi B has a nade and a flash. The flash buys a little bit of time for the nade to pop down. And Brawlin hits him down to 7 health. He hits him down to 7. He hits him down to 7. He hits him down to 7. And the peak, I mean, the peak makes perfect sense from Brawlin. If the nade's coming at you, I don't think Brawlin is trying to dodge the nade. I'm just thinking he thinks it's a good idea. Okay, well, if I peek out, I'm also dodging the nade, right? It's like a 2-for-1. It's like a 2-for-1. But Alexi B is ready for it. And I mean, you got to give some credit because I think both clutches that I've mentioned this in, the clutch off of Cat where Jimfat almost like 1v3s, right? But he gets killed by, I can't remember, JL, I think, on triple on T-side. And that one as well. I'm not sure either of those clutches is won if Navi don't have their player with a nade in their hands late round. No, actually, I got that backwards. Okay. Jimfat had a nade, then almost won on the clutch, but he did 2 damage less than he needed. And Alexi B had the nade. Okay. Take back. Pretend I never said anything, okay? Having a nade in your hand late round can be very effective sometimes. That's all I'm saying. It can be highly effective, you know? You don't have to throw your nades all at the very beginning of the round. However, theoretically, you want to throw a good amount of your nades at the beginning of the round because that's when they're most likely to actually hit someone. As you get later into the round, you're kind of either dunking on someone or missing, and most of the time it's the answer you're going to be missing. But Bit with the aggression into Palace, and it's not like he really catches Brawlin completely off guard here. Brawlin's kind of waiting for this. I mean, Brawlin isn't as ready as he has been at other times. Like, that's the one thing you can say about this, is that if Bit peeks out now, Brawlin probably kills him. But Bit goes for the aggression when Brawlin is... The best way to get kills in any scenario is when you catch your opponents in transition. And that means both on a macro front, like trying to exec a bomb site when your opponents are rotating in or out of a different setup, or like out of 3B into 2A. That's a great time to hit them before they're actually ready. But on an individual level, the same thing's true as well, right? You want to catch players in transition where they're moving between one angle and the next. That's when they're most likely to be running straight at you, or have to counter-strafe, or just, you know, not be prepared and thereby miss some shots. That's when it's most likely. Here's okay, so what? Let's pretend what I said before about the nades. Let's pretend I knew what happened in this round. And so the fact that Alexi B's got a nade, I think they probably saved these nades for the A smokes if the A smokes come in, because they both got nades. And Jimfat's just trying to cross over to safety, right? But man, both nades at the same time too. That's like flawless. Then you got Shuheen 1v2. I mean, that was just really well done by Navi. You just gotta say, it was really well done by Navi. And if you know how the first game in this series went, it was kind of similar, except, you know, Navi started off with a big lead. Oh, Alexi B with 13 health. Oh my god. Navi started out Inferno with a big lead, and Mao's kind of mounted a bit of a comeback, and Navi eventually closed it out in overtime. And this one was dangerously close to being the same thing, but in Mao's favor. But at the end of the game, Navi do manage to close it out for the 2-0. That was a good series. I mean, I feel like both teams played quite well. Navi had a good idea what was going on. And, yeah. That wasn't... I'm not sure that was necessarily Navi at their peak. There was a couple of whiffs. Alexi B was struggling. But that was, I mean... If you can beat Mouse, and you can not only can you prevent a comeback in one game, but make a comeback in another game, that's kind of huge. I'm a lot of people are putting Vitality in the final. I got Navi, son. I got Navi. Okay, I got Navi. Now the problem I have, the concern I have is like Mao's actually played really well in the playoffs, but they're known as like group stage merchants, right? Mao's actually played really well in this playoffs. But I feel like this is one of those ones where they played really well and then they just got beat by the better team. And then do they go back and they get in their own heads again? They're like, fuck, we really can't win. Man, maybe it's a thing. And it's like, no, you played really well. Like, don't think too much about it, right? I feel like this is one where they could end up getting in their own heads again. But I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching.